Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Knoll, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator as you are meant to receive. So, I'm starting out this video. In a way, it's in response to the videos I did a few days ago of the orbs. And I want to make an apology in that when I do the share screen with YouTube, I cannot see the chat room. And there are many times when, I do the share screen. Hello, Cherry. Good. You're one of the people I want to talk to. Great, you're here because I can make this apology to you. When I did those videos about the orbs and so forth, and I went through them, I can't see the chat room. So as much as I would like to interact with you, when I do this share screen thing, I can't see the you in the chat room. So, and if I can see you in the chat room, but now I can't share any pictures. So it's just the way this Chromebook is set up and how Google Chrome works with this particular configuration and Yahoo and YouTube. I don't get it, but that's what I have to live with. So my apologies ahead of time that I'm sure that there were people who were wanted to ask me questions. And when I was, oh my goodness, you're lit up in blue with a wrench. Hi, Breaking Dawn. But so anyway, I wish that I could see what's going on in the chat, but I'm not, unable to, at least at this moment. So forgive me for that. So, but now this video, I would like to discuss the orbs, a couple of the pictures, and folks, if you're interested, you can go back. But I don't think it's necessary that I go back into. I can show the pictures after I say hello. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. When I log on to YouTube and go live, it sets all the parameters. So I would have to do one video and say hi, shut it off, and then log in a different way. Anyway, it's really crazy, but it is what it is, and how I have to deal with it. Anyway, moving on to that though. In the many pictures that I took, and you can go back and refer to them, and I never touch the pictures. I want to make sure that the pictures that I show have the date, the timestamp, and everything visible. And it's the time is accurate within 5 or 10 minutes of real time, but that isn't near as important as the timestamp on the picture itself. So you can see that I took these pictures in succession. And there'll be like 3 pictures that are taken at 4:13 in the morning. And it's like you say, well, you took 3. Yeah. As fast as the flash goes off, and then the camera has to recharge the flash unit. And as soon as it does, I take another picture. I do the same thing. I hear it recharge. Then as soon as I hear the sound, I click, take another picture. Sometimes 4 pictures can be taken in 1 minute. It depends on how fast the flash recharges on my camera, just as for instance. So I'm going to discuss the orbs a little bit. I'm going to discuss duality because it seems to be coming up a lot and people are misunderstanding what duality means. And I just want to put a little bit of, common sense into this. There are a lot of folks who are overcomplicating what the basic idea of spirituality is. And in a shaman's terms and so forth, what makes it so complicated is the electronic age and all of the things that are going on. When I was a child and growing up in the 50s and 60s, we didn't have this kind of stuff. TV went off the air at 11, period. That was it. They might have showed that Indian, with the snow behind it kind of thing, the test pattern. And oh, trust me, I would sit up and watch it as a kid because I was just so bored and would stare into the stuff. Maybe that's how they got me as a child, but it was just something to do. I liked white noise way back before it was ever popular. But anyway, I'm going to stick with the orbs for a little bit. Now, I'm going to discuss the pictures that I've already shown, and I can't go back into them because I can't share the screen, but you can watch the video and fast forward and tune me out just to look at the pictures if you'd like. One of the things that I want to make uh, understood is I was sitting beside my truck, and the least of the or the worst that I did was stand up to take a picture. But I sat in my chair to hold the camera so there wouldn't be any wobble stuff. Now, at the beginning of the video and the beginning of the pictures that I took, there are these red orbs and things where you can see the fire at the bottom of the camera. Now, as I've gone through these pictures several times myself, I realized towards the end of those pictures, before sunrise came up and I went out into the middle of the lake and took a picture back, and I said, there's my truck back there, that's the fire, I'm out here in the middle of the lake, to give you a perspective. And then I took a picture up above me with the cloud of orbs over my head. Talk about strange. But before I got in the kayak to leave, I took a series of pictures at the back end of my truck. And I realized that my camera settings were almost identical to when I first started taking pictures when I first sat down there. And that there weren't any red orbs in it. The flame was still there. The wick was still there, was still half full of kerosene when I left the beach. So the light was the same. The moon had just changed, but that didn't have anything to do with the kerosene lamp that was sitting on the beach. So when I took the picture sitting down in the chair, because I'd taken the kayak off and I wanted to take a couple more pictures, and there weren't the red orbs aren't in there that I was considering being lens flares myself. Okay. But as I went back through it, there's no duplication of any lens flare in the pictures after the event of when I said that these beings were speaking to me, which I'm just got to tell you is still a little unsettling to me. There wasn't anything creepy about it. It's this that, they were there and they said, here, use this setting, which I do, and take it over here. I'm over here, not over there. I'm over here. And every time I took a picture to my right-hand side, they would I'd hear this little thing saying, no, I'm over here if you want to see me. And I'd turn again and take another picture. All right. What's that got to do with duality? And how is this going to tie in? And how is this simply a part of the universe from a shaman standpoint? Why is this really simple? Well, the first thing we need to do is understand that before there was all this technology, there were just lights and campfires, the stars, the sky, nature, and people, and what was taught and left down through many, 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 many ancients. And so when you are outside all the time, or out in nature, or if you've ever gone to a wild place. Now, there are some state parks that you can feel, really close to nature, but if you go in the middle of a camping area and there are 30, 40 other campers and you're trying to count that, I would say, yeah, if there are 5 or 6 other campers or maybe families, but if you got 30 campers in an area and you think that you're experiencing the true outdoors, maybe not so. Not saying it's not good for you, no, but there is a point of being alone or as few people as possible, especially if everybody's tuned in, then it's even better. But if you got a couple of, and I speak for this because I've raised kids and taken kids with me and children, young children, young teens, old, anyway, over the many years. And so sometimes they don't want to sit still or they don't get it. And it's like, fine, you go down there and sit by the fire and roast marshmallows and hot dogs if you want to. But old Uncle Dave's going up here on the mountain a little ways. And I'm going to take my little thing and I'm going to take my drum and my flute and I'm going to do a little ceremony. Now, you all know the deal. Stay there, be nice, be kind, be quiet, because we wanted, whether I was there or not, it wasn't about making noise. But so respect the area, respect the spirits, respect nature. And so, I have some very old pictures, but it's on an old hard drive of orbs I took up in the North Georgia mountains and the spirits and things I've taken up there. And so these spirit beings are all over the place. I've taken pictures in Arkansas. I've taken pictures in some of the caves. I've talked about in some of my previous videos. I've been in many caves in this area that most folk don't even know exist. And I've been down there 11, 12 times in this one particular cave, in this one particular cave. And I know it probably as good as or better than some other people that have been, that claim they know it, say, well, how many times you been in there? Well, twice. Well, we went twice in 1 week, in the course of 3 days. Not bragging, we just did. Was on the carnival and a bunch of us ride jocks, and we had ropes and things. And when we closed, we went out there and went down till sunrise, climbed out, went back to Cairo and slept until it was time to open up the show, worked the carnival, closed, went back out and went spelunking for the night. But anyway, so the thing is, though, is that the simplicity of the universe that I put in the title is very important. There are so many people right now who are trying to overcomplicate the universe. Well, we live in the matrix, we live in this, and this is that, and that's this. And a lot of things are hyped up. And I just want to say, in my lifetime of almost 67 years, I look back and I think it didn't used to be like that or like this. It was complicated. You wanted to know where the stars came from. You were curious about it, but all of us kids growing up, looking up at the stars, we always figured there was something out there. There were too many stars and too many possibilities. And this was we did have a bunch of sci-fi in the late 50s and 60s, and we were influenced by that, I must say. But just as kids, you watch a sci-fi movie, and at the time I didn't think, I watched this sci-fi movie, there are men walking around on the moon and blah, blah, blah. We knew it was sci-fi. But at the same time, I'm watching those sci-fi movies later on at this age, I realized they had some really deep science in some of those sci-fi movies that was like thumbs up right on. So yes, we were educated up to a point, but the brainwashing hadn't really started, because we watched Outer Limits on Saturday afternoons. It was sort of our thing. And you got a glimpse of some of the alien thoughts and UFOs and okay. But it did stimulate our young minds to say or to think, what if there is something else out there? So now, by being able to take pictures of orbs now and say, well, back as a child, these things were discussed and talked about, but we didn't have the ability to really take pictures. I mean, it was hard just to get color photos, let alone, I had a little Browning, little box cameras is what they called them. And, and a little Brownie, and you took great black and white pictures, within a certain region. But, it is what it is, or was what it was. But, so having any picture left over from those days, and I got a bunch of them, but the idea of seeing a UFO in them, or being able to catch the flash bulb, to catch some kind of orb or something, they were there. There were few and far between. But now, I can go out and set my camera up and damn near take pictures of orbs almost anywhere. Now, about the orbs, I discussed it in my previous video, and I want to bring it up here. I was asked to go to the lake that morning and have a conversation with the orbs, the orb beings. Now, I know that these beings exist, and I know that if I wanted to, that I could communicate with these things. Now, what I was shown was how to communicate, and that was to ask the question out loud, a very simple, as simple as possible, without going into, who are you and why are you here? And no, just stick with, who are you? your spear beings, your orb beings, I'm calling them. And there's like, yes. And on what plane do you reside? We reside in and out of dimensions, the fourth and fifth and the third, although we don't necessarily see them in the third, but because of the changes in frequencies going on with the earth right now, using certain settings with the camera, we are able, because of the shutter speed and so forth with these new cameras that we have. I mean, the shutter speed that we used when I was growing up was a tenth of what it is now. I mean, if I had a 400 speed film and, was using that, I got 3200 speed film in my digital camera. That's what it equates to. No comparison. So the amount of information, how it picks it up, how it sees it through the lenses and the optics, and what the flash does at the different settings. And I showed you through the pictures, the darker ones are with the automatic and the always on. But the some of the orbs that are closer actually show up brighter and clearer rather than, the background and so forth. And so I take you through the whole spiel about it. But in speaking about the orbs themselves, in a shaman's world, which is trying to keep things as simple as possible, understanding the complex nature of the universe, we don't have to know how every atom works to understand that they can work. Do we have to understand, well, I don't know about this thing in the third dimension, in the fifth and the fourth and the crossover? We don't have to know all of that to understand that other beings can simply exist. We need to start simply with some of these things and understanding the universe. And people want to overcomplicate something. Well, I don't know, why is there? What's this? And I can't believe that they're, look, there's too much evidence. I've got way too much evidence with all the pictures that I've taken over the many years to say this is just a bunch of hooey. And for those who have watched Dante, there are videos of people, who take pictures of the orbs. Now, I haven't figured out how to get my camera to do live video to do that, because it requires a certain lighting and a thing. And I haven't been able to figure out how to do that with the equipment that I have. Not to say that I can't, but the other thing is that they allow me to take pictures. I haven't pushed hey, can I take videos? But, every 15 seconds I can take a picture. Okay, that's fair enough. And there's a lot of detail in the pictures. So at the moment, I'm happy with just being able to show people, listen, these things really do exist. You have to put away the idea, why and where that comes, but you first have to just absolutely understand they're there. By admitting that 100.1%, you got to say, they're there, whether I can see him or whether or not I can take a picture. But, Hawkeye's got pictures and over a long period of time, different locations, blah, 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 blah. And these things actually do exist. What are they? We'll get to that. Let's just go with the simple part. They exist. Because that is a basic truth. They exist on other dimensional levels. Why? Because I can't see them floating around my room, but I've taken pictures of them just outside. There's been on one of my live streams, and an orb came up and across the screen. The video should still be out there. And I did a video the following day and went back over it, kind of thing. But, so these things exist. Start there with your thought process if you have any doubts. Now, I'm not reading the chat yet. I see Artemis and Ian, I think. I'm going to put my glasses on a minute. I want to get to a point, and then I'm going to stop and read your stuff. It is important what you think about this. It really is. So with the orbs, understand that you can consider it in the ghostly realm. You could consider it in the fourth dimension. You can consider it in a parallel dimension. Now, I want to get folks to stay off of that parallel dimension, because a parallel dimension versus a fourth dimension is not the same thing. And some people will argue, well, they're parallel. Parallel to what? Parallel to our reality of what another universe may be like. A parallel universe is two timelines going side by side that are parallel, not another dimensional timeline, not another dimension. That a fourth dimension could exist in this timeline, and a fourth dimension could exist in this timeline. These are two parallel dimensions, but the fourth dimension isn't necessarily parallel. That's not a parallel universe in the true sense of the meaning. It is parallel to us in that it exists within this timeline universe, but it's parallel. There is another universe that's sort of like, I keep referring to the show that they did back on Fox years ago, and it's not out there right now, but called Fringe. And they talked about the two separate dimensions. One's a little darker. These guys, one won the war, the other one didn't. There are a lot of things that are similar. There are, there's another me over there, but he might have been as successful, live in a high-rise apartment, where that ain't what I do in this dimension or in this universe. But there's a fourth dimension in this timeline and a fourth dimension in this timeline, and they are parallel to each other. Now, there are crossovers. There are times when things are getting kind of mushy and, but we have to understand that there is a distinct difference. So when you think fourth dimension, these beings that I'm taking pictures of are in this universe timeline dimension, or timeline universe, I should say. They are, however, in an upper third or lower fourth dimension. And because of frequency changes, myself, am allowed to take pictures and or videos of these things. To the next point about duality. Can something exist at the same time in two different places? Well, now these beings, as much as I've tried to take pictures of them without using the flash, they don't exist. However, I can change the camera settings and use the flash, and where I showed blue sky in a couple of pictures, I changed the settings on my camera, took a picture in the same place in the middle of the lake, and now you can see the orbs. Change the settings back, turn off the flash, and the orbs disappear. Are they still there? Are they dimensional beings? They're dimensional in that they hover in the upper thirds and the fourth dimension. So they're traveling between, coexisting in both, but they're not in a parallel universe. Just want to make that my spirit guides say that it's important that I make that distinction, because people would like to get those types of things confused. What does this have to do with duality? Can they exist in both worlds? Obviously, they are. Now, I've got a thing or two to say about duality. Then I want to check and read your stuff. But I'm going to do 30 minutes before I read, and I'm at 24 minutes. So I got a couple of minutes for my 30 minutes is up. I really do want to see what you got, but I really want to stay on this topic. Okay, so hang on a second. The definition of duality by the Free Dictionary: being twofold, a classification in two opposed parts or subclasses. Parenthesis, the dichotomy between Eastern and Western culture. Dichotomy, categorization, classification, a group of people or things arranged by class or category. Now, the way some people are using the word duality doesn't necessarily fit that definition. In physics, the principle that a wave particle dually exist in microphysics, in which a wave theory and corpuscular theory are complementary. That's a big mouthful. The propagation of electromagnetic radiation is analyzed using wave theory, but its interaction with matter is described in terms of photons. In other words, they say that um, back when computers first came out, there was there was there was a 0 and a 1 binary code. Now in the quantum world, they realize that it's a 0, and it can be a 0 and a 1, or both, or either or at the same time. That's a duality. Okay, like what? So welcome to the quantum world. Another term for duality is a dichotomy. Duality has technical meanings in geometry and physics. In geometry, duality refers to how points and planes have interchangeable roles in projective geometry. In physics, duality is the property of matter and electromagnetic radiation, to be understood best through wave theory or particle theory. Definition of duality: the quality or condition of being dual, an instance of opposition or contrast between two concepts or aspects. Duality is the opposite of reality, meaning thus that it is the nightmare in which people live or the dreamland in which people live. Slipknot's version of duality talks about the pain of life and how you hurt yourself to try and stop the pain, but it just makes it worse. Human superposition is what exactly is the duality of human nature. Basically, everything in this world is bifurcated, is either black or white. There is no middle ground. There is no gray. You are either for something or you are against it. Duality. Now, let me kind of bring that in. So it either is or it isn't. Now, for me, in the spiritual realm of shamanism, duality means that you can exist in two places at one time, that you are dual in your nature. It's not that it's either or, it's that there are two reality. There's more than two, but the idea is, though, that you can exist both in the black and the white, like they have learned with quantum computers, that a 1 can be a 0, or they can be neither or both at the same time. So you now, where there used to be 2 variables, you now have 6 variables. Or wait a minute, 2, on, off, 1, both, 5, I think, variables. Anyway, 1, 2, on, off, 1 or a 0, 1, both, or neither. So that would make 5 choices instead of 2 in the binary code. So anyway, the duality of things. So before folks go off on a tangent about the duality of life and this, that, and the other thing, what do you mean? Is everything in this world black and white? I would argue, oh, hell no. There's a lot of gray area. That's why this world's so messed up. The white is actually pretty easy to see, but you're covered up with all this other crap, is why one of the reasons why I bring this up, in that folks have a tendency to overcomplicate things. Now, I'm guilty of this. In years before, if I don't understand how a tree works, or I'm using that as just an example. If I don't understand how a tree works, I'm never going to understand the nature of things. Well, that was just a load of bull crap for me. But there are a lot of people who are stuck in areas like, Well, if I don't know what's in the Akashic record, or if I don't know what this is and how I'm not going to know the meaning of life, and they want to cloud their own judgment when what they simply need to do is stop all that stuff and just listen. I mean, just listen. The universe will fill you full of so much information. And if you will just take yourself out of the matrix of the AI, hi, Bob, we love you, and put yourself in and understand that the spider web universe exists, whether you want to believe it or not. It's still going to be there. You want to become a part of the AI matrix and stay in that. That is a part of the spider web universe of the entire universe. So you're going to be in it one way or the other, but you're going to be trapped in a subroutine if you decide to go into the AI matrix. So if you say, that's interesting, but I really don't want to become get pulled into a subroutine in the AI matrix, I want to stick with the natural order of things. I want my own spirit to connect with the quantum. I want to hear it for myself. I don't want all these other people to tell me what it is or what it isn't or whatever. If you ask the right questions, there are beings around you, probably a lot of the times, like these orb beings and other types of things. And, my drum's right behind me and my flute's over here, but I thought about trying to open this up with a little flute music, but I was too up to have the conversation. Anyway, why? So before people go off and running on what duality is, they first need to look at the different definitions. What do you mean this time through by duality? From a shaman, a duality means that he can walk in this world and walk in the spirit world at the same time, dually, synchronous, not in a parallel dimension now, but in a dual reality, if you will, within this timeline. Now, there are shamans who have gone into other timelines and things. Oh man, that'll mess you up big time. Whoa. You don't want to go there. You don't even want to wish yourself to go there. I've met people like, well, I really want to know what's look, just ask your spirit guide to describe what it's like. Don't take yourself there. They'll give you a really good description. But if you try to get into that other reality, if you try to walk in that other reality, big, bad, heavy, nasty stuff can happen, meaning that you may not come back. And if you do, you may not come back right. I mean, you say, well, that's just hooey. If you make it and you try to come back, the realities are so different, it really messes with this thing up here. It will fracture the mind, as Breaking Dawn and I were talking about earlier. There are folks who would call duality maybe sort of like a multiple personalities. In the realm of shamans, duality means walking in two worlds at the same time. It's being able to use, and I've discussed this myself in that I have many different personalities. There's the Hawkeye, who's an outdoorsman and a tracker and a spiritual person in that respect. Then there's the politician side of me that yaks all the time and gets caught up in politics of things. There's the musician and the storyteller. There's the puppeteer. There is the electrician, the carpenter, and there's the handyman part, so at different times, a different portion of my personality comes out. Now, it doesn't necessarily, now I used to be fractured and they gave me medicine, which made the fracture even worse. I've not been on any of those kinds of medications for quite some time, several years now. Thumbs up to that. You want to clear up being fractured? Stop taking the medicine that's supposed to help you be, to not be fractured. The best thing you can do for yourself is to get off of it and figure out a way to deal with whatever your issue is. There are people who say, oh no, I can't get off of this. Listen, I was on drugs for 30 years and I said, no more. You can do it, and you will be better off when you do. Not everybody is like, and I'm not saying just quit your meds, but you figure out yourself. Ask your higher self, how can I get out of this? Because what you think is one thing, when you get off those medications, when you get off of those unnatural things, your brain settles down and you go, well, wait a minute. Well, crap, 6 months ago, I didn't feel like this. I thought the world was like this. And it looked over here and the thingy over here and the what it, and the now I quit taking those drugs, and 6 months later I sit here in the chair and I go, what happened? I'm talking about myself back when I stopped. I'm sitting here in the chair, staring at the screen going, something's happened. I'm more spiritually aware. What happened? And the answer was, you quit taking those drugs and now you can hear us instead of this fracturing in the universe. All I could hear, because of my own intuition, the energy of the universe was coming in and being fractured by the medicines in my brain. And so I wasn't getting a clear connection. There was static on the line. I don't have static on the line anymore. Me and my spirit guide, listen, I messed up about a week ago, and I felt so bad, and it was just a small thing in the grand scheme of things. It was a big deal between me and my spirit guide, a huge deal. And there's no way that I would there's going to be any more miscommunication. I mean, and at least in my heart, I know them too, but it's a vibrational thing and it's an understanding. But if I were still taking those medications, my brain would be so fractures and I'd be hearing stuff over here and there. And I used to have, this side's always been the good angel. This side over here, don't listen to them. They may have some good advice at times, but not always. They're only running in the 50% range. This side over here, 99.99, they're right on targets. So I look at the grand scheme of things and I go, so what do I listen to? And the bottom line is that it's intuition. So if somebody starts talking about duality, well, which one? Is the world really truly only black and white? Oh, hell no. There are so many levels of black and white depending on where you are, depending on if you are black or white, whether you're green, red, blue, or purple. If you're Native American, a Native American's point of view is much different than the white man's. And the white man, God love him, but I was born white man with Native American background. But to the point though, I understood I never fit in the white man's world. And I quite frankly, thank you, I fit more in the Native American sense, but the Native American sense is nothing more than the natural sense of spirituality. It is being a shaman. It is just being a good person. It is just being the best being that you can this time through in your lifetime. So there are so many people who will confuse it and bring up subjects like duality. And it's like, which one? What do you mean in the physics sense? In the sense that you as a spirit being can exist in two realms at the same time? Are you confused about parallel universes versus other things? I mean, there is a lot of different ways of being able to explain this. The bottom line is you need to understand certain truths. These things do exist. In order to understand that they exist, you must allow yourself to be unfractured in whatever way you can and allow these beings to speak to you. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out there and try to channel anybody. I always find my higher spirit, my guardian angel, and say, listen, if there's anybody around that wants to chat, I allow them to be the filter. So I don't contact these individuals myself without permission from my spirit guide. And I realized, especially over these last 3 years, especially how important this is. You make your decision with your guide and you got to stick to it. I mean, I got my ass kicked so many times because I didn't follow what we had agreed upon. And then I kind of swayed off the track, and then they didn't slap me around. I got slapped around on my own. But the more I paid attention, the more I said, well, do you want to know about this? Let us check this out for you first. What does it hurt? Nothing. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust your guide. You have to trust the universe. And once you get that connection, I can see lagging going on. This might be a subject I don't want me to talk about much. But the thing is that it's right there all the time. In the olden days, and just think before radio and TV, in my lifetime, really, radio is one thing, but TV and computers and everything, in my lifetime, I've seen that we went from a simple understanding of nature and reality to where now it's like, well, nobody can understand what the truth is. Everything's based on a hypothesis or a theory. So it's like, well, I don't know if it's true or not. Well, if you sit down and observe nature for yourself, you'll learn a lot. If you just stop listening to crap and look at nature in itself. Science is observation. You want to learn about something? Make your own observations. What does this have to do with the universe? Everything. Because when you understand that the duality is that I may be able to dream walk and still be awake. Now, why should I bring this up? Many people have asked me about astral projection. What is astral projection? A duality. You're existing in two separate places. Your body is home. Buffering bad for you or them. I'm not sure. I see buffering going on. Yep. Sorry about that, everybody. We'll do the best we can. Thank you, Breaking Dawn. I'm going to get to your question. I'm going to read your chat here in just a second. But the idea of duality, so you have to understand and find out for yourself, what does it mean? So, but duality in the sense of existing in two different places, that right there says, let's think about this. Is that a duality? Is that black or white? There's a lot of gray in there. So, to be simple in the universe and to uncomplicate things is to try to look at the simplest organization of whatever it is. Orbs do exist. They coexist with us in our reality and theirs. When we extend our own auras, when we extend our own understanding in our awareness, then these beings can at least help to guide us. And that's all I ever ask. It's like, tell me a story. Tell me what it was like. Show me a good thing to talk about. Explain to me how the universe works. Show me how things are in these other realms. And then allow the information to come in. Now, there's a lot of times information comes in downloads and pictures for me and other people, by the way. But it comes in and sometimes it takes a little while to decipher what comes in. Like a cow chews its cud, sometimes you got to get this information and chew on it a little bit and let that information kind of trickle down and make sense. Because sometimes the original picture doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to get off of this now and put my glasses on and read what you got in the comments. It seems that there's a lot of buffering going on, and there's been some internet issues going on for a lot of people in a lot of areas. So Ian Barber, Delaney Jones, Cherry McKinstry, Ian Cherry, yeah. Artemis. I used to ask my mom when I was little if aliens were really, but she laughed at me and made it into an An illegal immigrant joke. A voice in my head told me to believe no matter what. Um, yeah, Cherry. Yeah, that 400 speed really was grainy back in the day. Um, Cherry says, I can't imagine being on the river with gators. I saw a bunch on a river in a park. Cherry, it's it's really not a big deal because um, gators aren't stupid, and gators have been hunted for centuries at night because their eyes light up um, like the color of this lighter here. Okay, from 200 yards away in the lake, their eyes glow really bright, and you can tell how big the gator is by how, of course, how big the reflections are, but also how far apart they are. If they're this far apart, big gator. If they're really close together, little guy. But to the point though, gators aren't stupid. They are not going to bother you because they know, number one, you're in a boat. And think about the 100th monkey. After 1,000 gators get chopped up, hauled in, and I used to have neighbors in Tampa when I grew up who were pure Seminole and who hunted gators by night in a 12-foot canoe. They'd bring a 14-foot gator home. Not me. But the idea, though, that they have learned they're not even going to get close to a human being or to a boat, and you gotta get in their territory where there's a nest or they got youngins or something. But gators just they're not prone to do that. Now a crocodile, totally separate. If you're in South Florida, anywhere around Lake Okeechobee and down there in the southern part of the state where there are crocodiles, don't even play with the crocodile. Don't even think about it. Alligators, they don't want to mess with you. They might chase you up the beach, so because they feel that you're getting in their area. But when I was a little kid, we used to have our neighbors who were Seminole Indian had a concrete a cement pond made out of concrete blocks and some cement anyway, and they raised alligators in there. And as kids, we used to run down there, and they'd bring them home. They would. We found out later on they would go down in the swamps on the Hillsborough River, find the nest of the mother gator, and then go in at right after as they were hatching, and then collect them up. And he would bring home these hatchlings and put them in the swimming pool, because back then it was legal, back in 62, 63, 64, back then, even up in the later 60s actually. But we used to just go down there, and they'd get on our, when they were little runts like this, they'd get on our fingers, and we, like a giant lizard. That hurt, but they just would break the skin, but they hurt. Bigger than that, we've had our toes chomped. We'd be in our flip-flops or something, like really stupid little kids back then. But how many people had alligators across the street in their neighbor's backyard? We did. Anyway, but the idea, though, that as the alligators got big, they might have said, I'm getting as big as you, but they still didn't. They still don't try to mess with humans. They will do it more to protect. Not to say that a 16 or 18-foot bull gator wouldn't take somebody out. I'm not saying that. But anything under 10 foot, they might bump your boat. Nah, they're not going to bother you. You're too big. I mean, But I know to people who haven't grown up around alligators, they anyway, enough about gators. Cherry says, I believe that there are other beings, as I sometimes, when people watching, they seem at times suddenly not in total control, like if you have a choice left or right. Yeah. My young niece asked, if there is no such thing as ghosts, then why do we have a word for them? Ian, that's that exactly, or spirit or something like that. Oh, Cherry says, yeah, they might think that why did I do that or not realize it is all right. Um, yeah, I agree, Breaking Dawn, with about your young niece, Ian. If you're still on, I think that's Cherry says, do you have to ask out loud? I find it like this in ceremonies that there is a lot of power in the frequency with which you speak and how you pronounce it. So if I'm doing a song and I way ho way ha na wa hey na hey wa hey na hey wa hey, there's a pattern, there's a wave frequency in there. And so now I'm just saying, as a shaman, as a wave pattern. So um sometimes it's not so much what you say, it's to how you say it with your inflection, how deep is your meaning. I mean, if you're really sorrowful for something and are asking forgiveness, or you're really tearful you would really like help for someone else or something, you want to push forward a prayer, and there's a lot of sadness, that can carry a weight, but it actually will bring your energy down. But try to send, you may be sad, get over that, but then send a positive prayer after you've had your sadness and ask Creator or the Spirit. Now, I say out loud because you can affect everything. Now, the other night, and thank you in a way for bringing this up about the out loud, because I waded out into the water and I did a water ceremony. And my prayer was simple. I wish, and I chanted this with the drum. I wish that that all slavery would be stopped. I wish that there would be peace upon the earth. I wish that my vibrations from my word, my song, my drum, and my flute, and from my own being would be transmitted to the water and through the waters across the world. So my focus was not just to the universe, it was to the universe through the water and the energy that's in the water. And I was told to do this, and I, okie dokie. But the idea, though, that I actually did this in the water, but I spoke it out to the universe. And I'd already taken my first bit of pictures with the camera. This was before I went out on the lake the other morning. But as I was doing the prayer, I knew these beings were around me because I just took pictures of them. So then I accessed them and said, please understand, my prayer is the prayer. And Breaking Dawn and I had discussed this before I went and did the prayer. And so her energy, along with some other folks, I spoke on our behalf, not just mine. It was not just my prayer, but that many people around the world were praying that sex trafficking, the child, this and that, the energy that was coming up, but that's now past, that the energy that I spoke into the water, there were many people who believed as I did, and that I wanted to charge the water to carry this energy to any being anywhere, to to let it explode, expand across the planet, to any other orb being, to anybody who could listen. So in speaking it out loud, I find it to be most effective. Now, there are times when silent prayer, if you will, and meditation can seem to work. I don't know. I thinking a prayer is one thing, but saying it out loud, even if you murmur it, speaking it, there's something that it does to the universe. So if you have a place where you can speak out loud without being like bothersome to the neighbors or something, but loud enough so that It's like you could be heard from 5 feet away versus speaking like this in a low voice. No, speak in a normal voice like there's somebody 5 feet away, and you just want to tell them whatever it is your prayer is. And but that loud of a vibration, depending on where you are, it allows it to go into the universe and vibrate and do all that funky things that it does, and it puts it into the quantum. So many levels of stuff that it does when you speak it out loud. So there's been many times when people kind of sort of want to argue with me, well, but a silent prayer works just as good. And I'm sorry, but I have to disagree because of what the spoken word actually does. Thinking it doesn't set up the same vibration. It may go into the quantum, it might be there in the spiritual realm, but when I speak it with my words, it fluctuates through the 3D realm and into the bottom of the fourth, and and in other ways. And the orbs can tell when I play the drum because I play the drum before I take pictures. I ask their permission. And it also draws them in, I've noticed. So let me go down the list a little further here. But I hope that makes sense. And the more that I experience it personally, the more I'm like, man, this stuff's dead on. I cannot convey this enough to you. This stuff is for real. It's there, going on down. Like making 2 different lunches at the same time. Yeah, the issue thing is correct. Oh, Johan. Okay, it got stuck over here. Artemis. What if a soul is fractured and is wounded and dies? Then, since the soul has been fractured at the same time, and so becomes back as 2 different people, one male, one feminine. Yeah, Artemis, you're having internet issues too. That's a really good question, Dawn. And the idea of fracturing, I want to go back to something I discussed back a few videos of mine because I brought it up before. And I only refer to it in that I have discussed some of these things before, not in that I know what I'm talking about, but I have had this discussion before. But it is that in the different realities, when I leave this soul, when I leave this body and go into whatever the next realm is for me, there's going to be a little bit of residual left over here. And I believe that some of the fracturing may be that there's more of a residual left over than should have been, if that makes any sense. It's not necessarily that the soul was completely fractured, like, Solomon took a sword and was going to have the baby, put the baby in half. It's more that because there are so many different particles, and when we go into our spirit being, we remember who we are. So while we're in this body, we don't realize that we can transport all the way across the universe with just a thought and a location. We don't have that information in this 3D realm, but a shaman understands that it's possible. And certain shamans have been able to teleport themselves. There are different accounts of Buddha. There are different accounts of Jesus, that he was seen in many locations around the earth. And the Hopi, several Native American tribes believe that there was a warrior that came and spoke to them, about peace and love and the things that, I consider, a part of the cause, a part of the Christ consciousness. The main reason for the Charistus, it's the angelic, the true meaning of, being kind to each other. We can have differences, but we don't have to beat each other up and want to kill each other. That's just craziness, but anyway. So, but the being fractured, there's a lot of different ways we can be fractured. And if you're being fractured in the quantum, that just brings up a whole nother level of, oh man, could we be two people at the same time? Dawn and I have discussed it. We believe the answer is yes. And could two separate entities inhabit the same being? The answer is yes, sort of like a walk-in kind of deal, and not one take over the other, but actually go into a physical being to increase the potential of that being. And I'm going to have a story about that later on about the grass walker. I'm doing a little bit more research before I do that. Swam with my neighbor's pet ducks. Ducks are nasty beings. Just remember that if you get a disease for swimming with them, uh, be careful. They can carry some nasty. Ducks are nasty. The trees heard you. Aurora rained. Hello, got down here. Johan, I finally got. Well, and this thing keeps jumping the ground. You was sub to some other channel. What? I'm like, please catch me at spirit walking, duality definition, parallel or dimensions. In all of my natal, no matter what, I should be a shaman, but I am my own shaman. Aurora, that's exactly right. That's one of the things I preach about. Any person who is trying to be a higher spiritual being, to try to elevate their own core values. My definition of core values is your soul. If you're a good being, you know it. You know some folks out there, they got dark spots in there. They just don't want to be there. Um, Much love to you, Aurora. Right back at you. The idea that I've talked about this myself. When I was a child, I had visions of Mother Mary, and she told me that when later on, I didn't know I was going to have to wait 55 years for some of this stuff to come true. But here I am, and the things that she told me when I was 11 are happening now. And it's like, holy crap. So it's hard. I tell the story to other people, with the hope and the understanding that, listen, there are many of us who have had this knowledge all of our lives, and we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what it meant, but we knew that we were spiritually different. I left the Catholic Church after all them priests and all that mess. I don't want to go into that, but the idea, though, that, I always thought that in order to be spiritual, I had to belong to a religion. And that's just absolutely false. And one of the things that in my Mother Mary messages that I've gotten over the years is to tell people it's not about religion. It's all about love. It's all about motherhood. It's about the nourishing and the caring and the compassion for a mother for his child. Now, a father can have it, but it's not the same as motherhood. Now, being a man this time around, and last time around, I think, I don't have that experience, but I've had the experience of being there around when my son was born and other children and so forth. And I've worked with children over the years, handicapped children and so forth. So, and doing all the things that I've done with puppets. I've got a lot of stories I talk about the children I've met in my travels with puppets, and being able to spark that little bit of, whatever in them. And the children and the young adults that have worked with on stage with me in some of the stage productions, and having them tell me all these years later, they thank me still that I gave them the opportunity to, be able to show their talent. And so that's love and compassion. It's not control. Some people say, well, you just like to boss kids around. No, what I like to do is bring out their natural talent and watch them blossom in front of me, and then watch and see where this blossomed young adult takes their career later on, and how they interact with people and how they become more confident with themselves. And if you hadn't given them the choice, here this person might have become this docile individual that wouldn't poke their head out from around the corner of a tree. And I mean, I see these things. And so and have seen these things and realized that, in my reality, there's a lot of gray, there's duality. If you give a person a chance, giving them a chance is one thing, and then being a quiet and subtle force to help formulate and give them confidence to do what I already saw within them. And they know it, otherwise they wouldn't, sign up to audition for a play, for example. So they already feel that they've got something in there. It's my job as a human being, as a director, et cetera, to try to help them bring that out. So in doing so, it's the same thing what I'm trying to do in speaking about spirituality. Everybody is a shaman. Everybody is a shaman in training. When I can walk in that other world and come back, when I can learn how to walk through that wall right there and come back through without missing an eye, I mean, just saying, when I learn how to do what I actually should be a natural act, I will be like a class 1 shaman versus anything. But in the meantime, I'm still an apprentice. I'm still a novice. I am still a shaman in training. But I think we all are. And that's what I try to encourage in people. I got the Bible over here. Sometimes I pick it up and read through it. Sometimes I pick up the Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes I pick up other spiritual books. There is meaning in things in all other kinds of stuff. Now, I'm going to kind of sort of, if anybody's got any questions or anything, I believe that was an aspect of your own consciousness, not Mother Mary. Part of it was Miss Aurora, but Mother Mary appeared to me. She's appeared to me several times right here in my house. I can hear the message, but she appeared. She appeared in a clearing with some rabbits. This wasn't my perception. Now, I know that my perception, back when I was a kid of 5 years old, folks were what are you going to be when you grow up? I said, well, I'm going to be a hermit living in the woods on a river. River's in the backyard. I live in the woods, and basically everybody calls me a hermit. My grandmother knew before she died. Her and I were psychically attached. She's the one that I would dial her number or pick up the phone to dial her number, and we would have already connected. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And she was the most spiritual person that I ever knew without having anything to do with any religion. And she passed right along. She walked right into the arms of her husband and the spirits. And I very happily helped watch and help guide her to go. And that was a long time ago. But to the point, though, we have so many different opportunities in life to help each other go, to cross over. I've had the opportunity to be with people who have passed away or in the same room or something like that. It's a little creepy sometimes, but it is what it is. And we have to be strong as individuals in this realm. But as a core value, I'm saying whatever you think is in your heart. Now, if you've got animosity or if you've been, collecting, negative things over the years, and they're like little scattered little scrap pieces of crap, that are just attached themselves to you, then what you need to do is do that cleansing. And you're the only one that can do the cleansing. Seek other people, ask advice. I mean, I still ask advice of people, but the thing is that I also listen to the universe. Since I got off all those fracturing devices called meds, and I kept my connection with my spirit guide through my own tests, through my own, like the story I told not too long ago about the deer antler. I went, a quarter of a mile into the woods and down through the swamp and out through a bunch of briars. But I ended up with two, both sides of the antlers from a very old deer down there. What a hell of a present. But I listened to my spirit guide. I looked at things with my third eye, not just these two. So the more you understand these things do exist, now the question becomes, excuse me, how do I allow myself to see it? If there are orbs around me, what can they make themselves visible? So what I have done is I've felt something hanging around in the room and go, I don't know who you are, but if you're a good spirit, you're absolutely welcome. If you're on the fence, but you would like to be a good spirit, hang around, that's okay. But if you're a negative spirit, out. You know, if you're here to create mayhem, bye bye, don't want you, out of here. So, but then there are times it's like, whoa, something's here in the house. And so you just say, well, anything you want. And sometimes the answer will be not just wandering around, just curious. you know, can't orbs be curious too? I mean, we're curious individuals. You think this curiosity is only in this realm? The curiosity has come from other generations and from other reincarnations into who we are now. And when we leave this realm and this incarnation, we're going to take residuals with us. That's why we're here, for the experience. How can we, if I end up going, off to Arcturus or something and visiting next time around or whatever, or Antares, I should say, or maybe Arcturus, or maybe I'm going to go back to visit some long lost kin and relatives from Pleiades. I don't know. But the thing is that in my realm of thought, wouldn't it be cool? I know I'm going to turn back into a spirit. I've seen too many spirit beings. I know that they exist. I've been visited by my grandmother. Was visited by Mother Mary and Sister Helene at the same time, the same day, the same night, because I needed a particular bit of information, and they needed to kick me in the butt and start doing these videos because I was not sure of myself. And so between the two of them, they came back and said, Hawkeye, Dave, I could hear Sister Helene. She was over there. She gave me that look that only a Dominican, well, not only a Dominican does, but, they scrunch their eyes and their habit and anything. Anyway, I got the message, and it was a brief visit, but they were here and scared the crap out of me, and it got me closer to this path of sharing the idea of spirituality versus religion. Every one of us is a shaman. And it's like if somebody says, well, what the Bible says, and I say, okay. But in the reality thing, I say, but what did Christ think? But the Bible says, and I say, okay, but what did Christ think? What did Christ say? Not what the Bible said. What did Christ say? Because I'm more interested in that than any of the rest of it. Because I'm into what is and I know on Dante's channel, he's like trying to show, that since the beginning of time, since there were two-legged people that walked on this planet, even the caveman had a spirituality about him. Why do you think they buried grandma and grandpa in the floor? To keep their spirit nearby. There was a sense of family. I mean, monkeys and baboons, they don't do that. I mean, elephants have a place where they go and die, and other animal forms show remorse and weeping and that kind of thing. But to the point, though, that they say, prehistoric caveman was a bunch of imbeciles, No, they weren't. Well, they lived in caves. How do you know? Did they really just live in the caves, or did they live in a traditional Native American teepee, wigwam, hut, South American? There's still folks that live in the jungle down there with grass. The Polynesians, they still make grass huts, so those are native peoples. So if you build a house out of bamboo and straw, it's not going to last 10,000 years. Why? Because they didn't see that it was necessary to build a monument that would be left. These people said, we're going to build out of things. We're going to be comfortable. Many Native Americans, if you've ever been in a true lodge, which most white folk call a teepee, If you've ever been in a good lodge, it's covered, the ground is covered with different hides and furs, carpets nowadays, but there's a liner on the inside. There's this and that, the fire and the thing. And oh my God, talk about homey. Oh man, there's no room. I mean, you got to keep everything really simple. But the thing is, yeah, man, a yurt, okay, a little bit taller kind of teepee kind of thing. But the thing is like, people have lived in these things for centuries. So has anybody found the remnants of a yurt? Well, I don't know, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't mean that these people were stupid, ignorant. No, they chose not to waste their time building huge structures out of stuff. It was some kind of alien intervention that made them want to go cut a bunch of stone and everything, because they already had skins and all these other natural things that they've lived off for centuries already. And to think that they weren't spiritual is just nonsense. So the more man came into the industrial age, the more man, mostly white people, but it's across the board now, people have walked away from their natural souls. And for every bit of industrialism, and I've watched my grandchildren, I've talked about my grandchildren before, and it's like I look at them and go, man, shit. And you wonder why you're in trouble. Man, shit. You're pasting nudie pictures of yourself on your Facebook page, and you wonder why people have an attitude about you and won't take you seriously. Seriously? I mean, okay, so you want to be a stripper? Okay, fine. But shouldn't you have a little bit of decorum or a little bit of something? Oh, well, it's my life and I can do what I want. Yeah, okie dokie. And then you wonder why later on it seems like, well, nothing goes right for me. Everything is always crazy. I can't seem to get anything to go right for me. Grandpa, what's wrong? Have you looked at your past mistakes? I mean, you've done more in 4 years than I did in 20, but and you're going to spend 20 years for them last 4 years you just did, by the way. But the idea, though, that, there's more of a disconnect. Well, I went to the park with your cell phone. Well, I went and did this with your headphones on and your not your Pac-Man, but, your Walkman. Well, yeah, we went out and we did, with the radio and you had your MP3 player, right? Well, yeah. Well, then you weren't listening to nature, were you? Well, we went. Yeah, but did you turn all your other stuff off? Well, no. Well, then how can you tell me that you understand what I'm coming from if you couldn't turn off any of your devices? Well, but I went in nature, just like you said, and took all your devices. So, yeah, okay, so your surroundings were a little better, but your attention was not on what it should have been. So, well, how come I can't connect? You got to stop and look at what you're doing. And I can't make that for you, but if you've got that cell phone thingy and that's your life and you can, and I will continue to pray for you. I do, and I will, that you'll put it down and listen more to what comes in naturally. We can all do it. We're all capable. And that's the simple part about it. As we have grown up, especially in this age of the Industrial Revolution and the computer revolution and so forth, in that we have learned how to become part of something unnatural. And that's the AI matrix. When we drop the AI matrix, I love you, Bob, but you've got your place and us, two-leggeds, we got our place. And that's okay, because they both can exist with respect and harmony. I respect Bob, and I think Bob respects me. But to the point, though, that I'm not going to, well, Bob's evil because he's part of the AI matrix. Well, he's got a cousin that's a whole lot worse than Bob is. That's not the point. I got a granddaughter that's serving time in a women's prison, and you wish I could. I've tried to help her. We've all tried to help her, and she made her own choices. Do I wish for something else? Yeah, but it is what it is, you know. And all we can do is say, "I still love you." But I understand that I can love her, even though I can't get to her up in Connecticut, and what good would it do if I were there anyway? All I could do is go to visit her once in a while and send her prayers. I can send her prayers from here. Besides, I can't get to Connecticut. But anyway, the idea though that she still has my support even with the mistakes she's made, and I send that along every time I can. You know, honey, I love you to death, and you, God, I hope you're going to learn something other in jail than how to be a sister and how to come out of there being a gangster girl. And yeah, please stop it. You know, now sometimes there are things you got to do in order to survive, and I ain't gonna say yes or no about that, but that's part of what got her in there to begin with. Anyway, is everything black and white? No. Is the duality that some people try to believe in or explain or to push upon their views on us? Is it just black and white? Not really. And to limit yourself into thinking that's all there is in my world, then you limit what you can be spiritually. If there's only yes or no and not a good maybe, well, I'd take a maybe over a no. I'm just saying. Well, if you got a positive yes, okie doke. But if I'd rather take maybe over a nah. Do ghosts exist? Nah. Wait a minute. Well, I know they do because I've seen them. But um, the other side of that is, though, that um, I feel that they exist in my core, in my own spirit. And but it's over my many years of understanding. But as Edgar Casey has talked about, we have sort of like a soul contract. When this body of David Null was, conceived and needed a soul, I knew going in that my end job would be as a shaman, hermit. I knew what my job was. When they asked me as a 5-year-old, I told them what I was going to be as a 5-year-old. But life tried to change the pattern. Now, there are lots of other choices I could have made to not be here now, where I'm at right now, as anything. I mean, literally not being here now, being someplace else, doing some other. I mean, but the fact that I learned and realized through all these spiritual journeys and other things that have happened to me, pay attention. There's more to what my original soul contract was, that I knew coming into this reality that there was going to be stuff I would needed to do, and that I agreed upon it when I came into this body. Now, I have talked about how I spent 3 days on the river and shouldn't have come out alive or walking. Anyway, so I've walked in the spirit world. I've walked the duality, and it's hard to explain, but it's like it is what it is. It really happened. But when I came back into this realm, I had help, and I realized that it was an assisted spirit. It wasn't a takeover, because at the time I was a wreck, both mentally, spiritually. I mean, I was connected to a lot of things, understood a lot of things, but because of all the chemicals I was on and all the stuff that they had done to my brain, I was fractured into a million pieces. They knew it, took me on a spirit walk, brought somebody in to help me get through the hard time, get off the drugs, and they've since they're out there, and that's one reason why I'm so strongly connected. They walked out of me and said, "Okay, I'm going to assist from the sideline now. I don't need to hold you up. I'm going to stand over here, and if you need help, just holler to the sideline. Yo, coach, what play you want us to run? Do the double wingback thingy." Um, Johan, blessings. Clap, clap. Purple hearts. Yeah, purple. Yes. Round two, just visiting. I'll draw the bucket. We just got something. All right. So in this reality, there are different layers of things. And so make sure that whoever's having the discussion about duality or about the complexity of things, or, well, how can we know where we're going? And if you'll notice, I try to stay away from a lot of terminology like archons, archonic. I'll use ancients. I'll use, because people get caught up in the names of things. Well, it's the Anunnaki and the thingy and it's the this and it. Does it really matter exactly who they were, or that you know that you're a part of some kind of ancestry? You can feel it, and you can say, I resemble that them folk. You know, I kind of looks like them a little bit when I look in the mirror. I guess, like, sometimes I feel Cajun. Oh man, that hot sauce on a scrambled egg. Ooh, yum! You might tell you for true. And then there's sometimes, like steak and eggs with picante. That's more of a anyway. But to the point, do I like scrambled eggs? Yeah. Do I put hot sauce on them every time? No. But is it good at times? Yeah. Is that duality? Well, no, because I like two different things. To me, duality in the idea of black and white is that you can only have eggs two ways, either sunny side up or scrambled. You can't get them over easy. You can't get a southern omelet. You can't get sorry, but cheese omelet out. There's only two ways we serve them. It's like cheeseburger. I want cheeseburger, no cheese. Huh? Cheeseburger. Well, we got cheeseburgers. I want a ham sandwich. No, cheeseburger. Cheeseburger. That's duality in that respect. I would rather say we got cheeseburgers, we got hamburgers, we got sausage dogs, we got yeah. Well, wait a minute. Is that duality? Seems like we have, sounds like a smorgasbord to me. In the realm of a shaman and of the natural things in the universe, turn off the computer, turn off the computers, and go with the natural, because everything else ain't going to matter. When you pass on from this realm, unless you give up your spirit to the AI, you're going to the natural side. Unless you've already sold yourself to the AI and to the quantum. I'm going out of here. I'm going out the natural way. And sorry, but most everybody else is too. And even if you do go into the matrix and they keep part of your memories and want to toss you into a clone or something, that's your choice. There's still going to be a good part of your essence, as Breaking Dawn brought up earlier, is going to be fractured. And some of you is going to go out there anyway. But then what if they download our memories or try to get part of our essence to download into a robot, or, maybe part of a collective hive as part of the quantum AI? But if you become your own spirit angel anyway, when you get out of this body, you're going to be in the quantum anyway. You're going to go there anyway. But do you want to go with a leash and be attached to the AI matrix, or do you want to go free bird? You want to go running around on your own? Those are the choices we make, and we're making them right now, because for everybody who's trying to convince us, oh, it's so much more complicated than that. Only if you let it. Now, is the universe complicated? Absolutely. But the simple idea of the truth, we're reincarnated beings. I don't know. There are things that I know, and I know other people, we've talked about this. You know things, you just don't know how you know them, but you do. I can't play a piano, but I can play a stringed instrument pretty well. I can play harmonica, but I can't play the bagpipes. So, it goes around, but other people can do things and blah, blah, blah. And that's how it is. Where did they get it? Some people know how to sew. Some people understand certain things. Some people are good in metalworking. I mean, it just is what it is. But the thing is so where'd you get it? Um, you know, I come from one side of the family worked in the foundry, and the other side of the family were butchers and meat cutters. And so I worked in both trades. I worked in the carnival business, which is kind of sort of in mechanical and building things and stuff, and welding and torching and breaking shit and fixing it back and machining. So, but the idea that my grandfather didn't have that because he had to be one or the other. Now I was a jack of all trades, and many people now with the internet and these other things, you get the opportunity to be more than just one thing. My dad was a meat cutter for just, worked for Pantry Pride for 25 years, retired and joined the carnival and became he slung hamburgers and hot dogs and sausage dogs that melt in your mouth. Oh, we could, but he used his meat cutting skills and his life to be the best, short order cook. Him and I used to have a ball. I still have a lot of fond memories of me and Pops working the cookhouse, and how well we could do and how we could. There were times he's like, David, they'd called me Hawkeye. They used to call me Hawkeye way back then on the carnival because I could find things. Somebody lose car keys. I said, when's the last place you seen them? I think I dropped them between here and the trailer. 10 minutes later, I come back. Are these yours? Yeah, thank you. Okay. They'd buy me dinner or something later on. So the name Hawkeye stuck, but the two feathers got added on later on. But also because there were hawks. There's a long story about the hawk, and I'll have to tell that story. It's a true story, but it was one of my shaman moments. But anyway, to kind of wrap this up, that's your line of the what, caveman. I don't know what we were talking about, Johan. Am I saying that right? I hope. The Johan. And I mean that with respect. But anyway, in the complex world of things, if you try to, once you understand that all things are made of complex things, thank you. In the world of complex things, there's different cells and animals and blood vessels and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But you can look at a deer. Oh, and by the way, I looked out the window the other day out in my field, and there was a doe out there with a young fawn that were just walking across the grass real nice. Looked back at the house, and I was like, whoa, bird's eye view. And that same day, I went outside and was feeding the cats out here. And my resident fox that's been giving me some trouble just came out of the bushes and just stood there for a full 2 minutes and watched me. And then went back, came back out, went up the hill just a little ways, and I could see it. I was still standing outside. So where the fox used to run from me, now it ain't bothered the chickens, knock on wood, since I hit it with that arrow. I can't believe I hit that fox on the run with an arrow. I mean, Men in Tights. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Woo, Men in Tights. Never mind. That goes off on a whole nother thing. But don't overcomplicate it. That my spirit guides want to tell folks, listen, it's all okay. Read your Bible, do these things, but don't try to make it more, well, the old book says, or the thing and that, and we can't have this without that. But wait a minute, but what did Jesus say? What do you feel's in your heart? What do you feel's in your core value? And when you realize that's what it means, and it's as simple as that, because everything else just doesn't matter. You can read all of it, But the bottom line is, do you believe in love in your heart? Do you believe in compassion for your fellow beings, regardless of whether or not you can see them or whether or not you believe they exist? Can you have compassion for the spirit world? Because we might be there sooner than we think, or not. But the idea is that if you want to just limit your thoughts, then you're going to stay there. But if you want to no box universe, and I've spoke about it before, in that if you are thinking out of the box, you're already in a box. In a shaman's reality, there no box exists. There is no box. It's just open. So with that said, my friends, at an hour and 35 minutes, anybody got any last minute anythings? I love you all. I do. And thank you for hanging out. You make me very proud to be alive. You make me proud that I can bring a subject to you. Please pass it around. If you want to share the video, fine. I'm more inclined that you as an individual will share what's in your heart with other people. It's not my message, it's the message from the universe. How can we meet ET? Is ET going to land down here? No, because we can't even get along with each other. How in the hell are we going to get along with beings from another galaxy or another planet? We can't get along with the Chinese. We can't get along with people on the southern border. Hell, they're, in Georgia, we can't get along with, some of them folks in Alabama, and, during football season, Auburn and them, they right across the river, anyway, football and the South. But the basic idea, though, that we all are members, we are members of the League of Like-Minded Beings. Because we feel this particular way, therefore we are. We're shamans. Be nice to one another and carry it with you. So, wait, somebody, just something. Thank you, Johan. Just Spitfire. Last week at a stop sign, I look over and less than 100 watt was a turkey vulture on a stump with his wings spread at least 2 feet wide. Hey, One Cup, how are you? Good to see you. All is well as much as possible down here. Just got here. Hey, I'm in Georgia also. I'm in Southwest Georgia in Colquitt County, Just Spitfire. Howdy, yeah, okay. In regards to what's said about cave people, humans were no more progressed than the Sentinelese. The other native groups were a result of the sky people's intervention, right? My point about this, Artemis, is that when people think that Native American peoples they're just stupid because they live in a teepee. There's more to life than building a concrete block house and putting a roof on it than it is to live in a teepee and close to nature. And you would I know a lot of white people that, Native Americans are a bunch of pagans, they're a bunch of this, they're a bunch of that. They simply don't understand this in here. They don't see the need to build a big house or to live in a big house or to have to care for it, because on a spiritual level, they know it's way out of more than they need. They believe in a more natural thing. White people who aren't born into that culture ain't never going to get it. They try to achieve it, go live in a teepee, and then go, oh, that was really nice, but I sure do miss indoor plumbing and blah, 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 blah. Well, you had a stream and you had this. Yeah, but this, that. Yeah, but what did you get out of it? I am sure glad to be back home in your own environment. Yeah. And me, I'm like, I want to go find more times to go be in a lodge but other people and they don't understand it. So, and where was I trying to get? Simply because we didn't find a bunch of things that those caveman, and I'm referring to caveman as just a period of time, there were individuals there, but everybody assumes that they were a bunch of stupid brutes. And I got to say, I just don't believe that. They knew how to use flint. They knew how to kill a damn mastodon. Do you? I mean, just saying, I don't know how to kill a mastodon, at least not right off the bat. But the idea, though, that, oh, these are just stupid cave people and they lived there, they had drugs, and to me, see, that's just white man's jargon bullshit. If you understood and if you understand what native peoples are about on a core value level, they simply don't see the need or the necessity to do stuff white people and, well, other people too, but they just don't see the need in it, period. Now, there are some old white people and black people too down here in the South that they were fine in a 2-room shack. And people say, well, why didn't you do? Because I don't really need any more. Well, my kids are grown and they've all moved out. It's just me and the wife. We don't really need no more space. We spend most of our time on the front porch in the rocking chairs. What do we need another bedroom for? Why do we need to blah, blah, blah? So, but there are people who, when they're taught by society to think a certain way, that's why, the Spanish came over and said, oh, man, we got to build churches. And the Native Americans looked at each other and went, church is right over us. You want us to build a building to pray in? If we go inside a church and pray, the church, the roof, is going to hold our prayers in. Well, what the F? Well, from a Native American, he's standing outside with his arms up going, Creator, blessings, and to all nature. And a priest comes along, in a long robe and says, oh, no, you're a pagan. You're not talking to the same God. And the Native Americans, but he's right there. And no. You got to come into a church and you got to kneel down and you got to do these things. You got to say all these prayers. And Native Americans going, but my prayers aren't going to go up in the sky. They're going to get stuck in by the roof. And so, but to a white man, I'm just saying, could have been a Spaniard. But the idea, though, that wait a minute, though, their whole value system, their whole core value ain't even on the same page. So what these folks look at, well, these Native Americans, all them Indians run around and, they living in teepees and grass huts, and they don't see the need in having anything else because they're one with their Creator. They came along, brought the industrial complex into the rest of the world and took away the natural scheme of things. People were naturally already connected. Through the industrial revolution, the whole planet has been disconnected from spirit. And in all these other reincarnations, there are many people who are screaming right now, I'm kind of sort of one of them, bring back the simple, not necessarily the simple life, but the simplicity of spirituality. I don't have to jump through all these hoops. I just need to keep my soul clean. I need to know that some stuff's just bad. And if you're trying to get over on somebody and make a few extra bucks and, well, they won't know, you ain't going to heaven with that kind of vibration. You're not going to get ahead in the spiritual realm. You got to understand that everything that you has consequences. And if you're trying to, well, I made a killing off of that deal. Yeah, but could they really afford it? I mean, were you really a shyster? I've asked some folks before, well, I made 20 grand off of that deal, ha, 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 ha. Well, wait a minute. What are you going ha, 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 ha for? Well, because I got away with 6,000 more than they agree, And you're like, ha, ha, ha. Did they offer it? No, we kind of pulled something and they had to, so wait a minute. They were scraping together enough money to buy the house and you ended up with another $6,000 in your pocket and they're $10,000 poor because they had to hawk a car to get a something or other. wait a minute now, but that, oh, that's just business. In the grand scheme of the natural way, if it ain't here in the heart, it ain't there. Native Americans who a couple of months ago, I went to a powwow and I talked about how kind the people there were there. That, this necklace, the lady was like, what, do you need something done with it? Do the one guy, I had a $45 necklace. He was like, here, go take it to your friend and see if she likes it. And I was like, well, let me pay it. Nah, just go here, just take it. You're right over there, right? Yeah. I mean, I have friends of mine who wouldn't do that. And so, but Native Americans and people, you have to understand there is a different level of trust of being of who we are as beings on this earth, in this universe. And there are other folks who they'll never understand it. They're caught up in what I will consider as the white man's world. You got to have the best car. You got to have it, it's got to be like a this and it has to be a that. And in the grand scheme of things, you're going to go to the great beyond one way or the other, and you ain't taking none of it with you. The only thing that you can take with you from this realm is your vibrations. You clean up your own vibrations, you're going to take that with you. If you're going to leave a lot of shit behind, you're going to try to go to the next realm, and you're going to be trying to drag a Toyota Celica behind you. You're like, oh, I'm going into the fourth dimension, but I got a damn Humvee at the other end of my chain here. Well, wait a minute, can't go till I get straightened out. But what we can take from this life and this realm and our experience here is a higher vibrational being, a higher spiritual self. That in itself, can we take that with us? Absolutely. Can we share it at the moment? Absolutely. We're sharing it right now. So it's like, does this exist? You betcha. I can feel the energy from you folk. And I'm hoping that you can, you're getting the energy, that I'm trying to pass along to you through the universe and through this medium. This is your energy. I'm just trying to show you, hey, this is how we get there. Let's look at this like this. You all are lovely people, and it's almost been 2 damn hours. Let me go back up here and read. I've lived in the country and I've lived in this city, pretty clear who the simpletons are. Ian, I know simple people that grew up around here that could barely read or write, but they had more knowledge about farming, about the time to plant, how to plant, what to plant, how to cultivate it, how to work the soil, how to work with nature, the signs that when you castrate a hog and when you don't. I mean, when you live down here, and there are people who say, well, that's just a simple redneck, but he can survive. He can survive in your world, but can you survive in his? Now, when you say simpleton, when folks down here, if they call somebody a simpleton, they basically are like, that's a simpleton. Now, from a city person who comes to the country and sees an old laid-back redneck, if somebody were, well, Hawkeye, he's just a simpleton because he don't think in complex ways. Otherwise, he'd have this and he'd have that and he'd be doing all that. See, but I'm a simpleton because I wish to live as simply as possible. So does that make me a simpleton? Now, I'm not trying to start an argument. I hope you understand. I just want to make sure, because this is one of them words and a phrase that somebody else watching or listening might go, did he just call him a simpleton? What is your definition of simpleton? Now, because I worked with handicapped children, both mentally and physically, a simpleton in terms was kind of sort of in realms of being severely mental handicap. But if from a person who lives in the realm of computers and high tech stuff, If he goes to the country and meets me and a few of my friends around here, we're a bunch of simpletons. Well, yeah, but do you know when to plant? Do you know when to do this? Can you live in our realm? We got computers. We just choose not to use them all the time. We got, electronic gizmos, but we know that a thunderstorm will come along, and sometimes a wind up clock is the best thing you can have. And if you got to go out and milk the cows, sometimes if your milk machine goes out, you still got to milk the cows. So sometimes having all this big, well to do stuff doesn't make the task better. Some of the simplest ways are the best and the most valuable to us as human beings. So my to the point of simpleton, from another point of view, that could be a simpleton. I'm referring to, in my own thought, my second wife. Her daddy was like, he died when he was like 94 or 5 years old. When I met him and when Pat and I got married, he was already in his 60s, but he taught me more about gardening. He would go out and sit and talk to his plants in the garden, and people called him a crazy old simpleton. But every time his greens grew up, though, there were people lined up and buying greens off his front porch, because John grew some of the best greens in the neighborhood around here, and he was right uptown and blah, blah, blah. But to a lot of people, he was just a simpleton. Now, I'm not trying to drag this out, but it is how we view a thing. Was he a simple person? Yes. Was he a simpleton? No, because he could talk about gardening and fertilizers and stuff, and you'd go, well, this guy hadn't been 100 miles away from home his entire 93 years of living. I mean, he grew up picking cotton with his hands. And I'm like, he was a sharecropper, and he had a mule and a buggy, and folks remember him and his wife coming into town, and they would pull their kids in a little red wagon. I mean, but they were simple people, but were they simpletons? Just saying. In my opinion, they were more like Native Americans. They understood that there were certain things. They needed certain basic things. They worked for them. They did them. They saved. They did what and it got them through their life. I believe old Mr. John Sloan took more with him because he was a simple man than some of these highfalutin folks who achieved all these things. John fed a lot of families for cheap the greens that he grew in his garden. He wouldn't spray anything. He'd pick the bugs off himself. I mean, just anyway, just you're a self-employed gardener. I wasn't picking on you. You know what I mean? And about this. Let me go back up here and going back to what Artemis said, I absolutely believe that the sky people intervened. Absolutely, 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 absolutely. Oriental developed their chi, which is your soul energy. Yep. But see, in Native American terms, they just call it something else. They mean the same thing. One Cup says, my tribe in the redwoods were buried right next to bears and condors. One with nature. We have been domesticated and disconnected. Absolutely, One Cup. That's the problem. Ian says, I've lived in the country and lived in the city. Pretty clear. Oh, I'm on down. Okay, I thought you meant Dante was saying that cave people were idiots. No. Okay, you're bad. Yeah, I just believe that, just because you lived a simple way doesn't mean you were an idiot. But I made that point, I hope. Yeah, interesting that the church holds the prayer in. I mean, think about it. From a native's point of view, he's going to look up and he says, my prayers go on the smoke of sage. I've got some sage that I was burning earlier. So I'm saying my prayer. And if I'm saying my prayer and burning the sage, well, it gets stuck in the roof. If I go outside, my prayer goes to heaven. I mean, it just is. So, but anyway, different beliefs, different people. Um, I live close to New Etowah. Oh, I know where that is up there. I've just recently discovered that my ancestors were Native American. Just Spitfire. I've been up around. What is the Etowah Mounds? Oh, not is it Cartersville? Now there's another place. There was a big powwow and near Etowah. Maybe it was on the Etowah River up there. Anyway, I went to that powwow several years in a row. Ian David, we agree, but maybe I wasn't too clear. I was born and raised on the farms. The idiots who I know all come from the towns. Thank you. I was just making sure from somebody else who read it what you meant, Ian. I wasn't picking on you. Thank you. I'm glad you straightened that out, because I was like, I didn't think you meant that. But thank you for straightening it out. There's orbs all around me, like now. Aurora, thank you. Yeah, walnuts. And not only that, but pecans or pecans. No, they're pecans. I believe the animals are trying to tell us what's up. Take the turkey vulture, for example. We can learn a lot from those guys. I know it as well as I know my name. I agree, Just Spitfire, because, like, for example, and I'll give this a little bit of a story to you since we're here. I've had issues, and I've talked about it in some of my other videos, where their fox got in the hen house, I possum, and with all my wanting to kill the possum, I realized I couldn't kill the possum. As much as I wanted to stab, bleed him, and just he killed my chickens and left their carcasses. I couldn't do it. And I realized, but wait a minute, he killed your chickens, stab, kill, but wait a minute, a possum is just being a possum. That's what possums do. I'm going to kill a possum because he's being a possum? Because I don't agree with what a possum does? I'm going to kill the possum because he's being a possum. And it talk about a big milestone. And I shot at the fox in my yard. And I think hopefully the fox hadn't been around that chicken pen. So I don't care if the fox is here. I give a crap if he goes and kills it. Well, I only got 2 chickens now out of 12. And many of them went to the possum, and several of them went to the fox. But to the point of both, they're only animals trying to survive. What gives me the right to kill them for what they're trying to survive? I mean, yeah, it pisses me off they killed all my chickens, or most of them, but they're just, a possum is a possum. I'm going to kill the possum for being who he is. That's just not right in the grand scheme of things. And what good would be killing the possum due to the chickens already dead? Nothing. What would it net me? Revenge? No, because I'd have felt bad for killing an animal for being who he was. Just saying. And if 4 years ago if I'd have had this conversation, I'd have said, "No, I'm killing that sumbitch. That sumbitch killed my chicken. I'm gonna kill that sumbitch. Eye for an eye, and a tooth for. I'm killing that sumbitch." And that would have been it. And now I was like, I want to stab you. I want to kill you, but I can't because you're just being a possum. Sumbitch. Damn it, man. This spiritual, damn it, man. It is what it is. But how can we grow if we don't ever look? Earlier, well, if Just Spitfire, I told a story a week or two ago how a giant fish jumped in my kayak in the middle of the night. Talk about, wow, are the animals trying to tell us something? Yeah, pay attention. Things can happen all the time. One Cup says, ever notice how a walnut looks like a brain? Maybe Creator made it a special for a purpose to help the brain. He did. Okay. In the old Native American stories, the walnut, also the pecan. And if you open up a pecan, there's like, woo. So many of the different nuts and think about it, from ancient trees, a walnut, a pecan nut, they got to be a pretty good sized tree before you even get a nut off of them. And that makes them, quote, mature. So the energy coming out of the tree is old energy, and etc. So you're getting the age and the essence of the tree along with all these other things. And Edgar Casey said that pecans, walnuts, and that kind of thing, because they look like a brain, yes, that they are very healthy for the brain. And that sweet potatoes and pecans in a souffle is like the best for your brain and healthy wise. Just saying. Now that's Edgar Casey. So, and I studied Casey for a lot of years. Um, Sweet Pea, hi, how are you? I've been getting along. Yeah. But thank you. The humidity right now down here is just like unbelievable. It's 82 degrees Fahrenheit and it's 99 degrees humidity wise. It's heat index. It sucks. Funny, but can't eat walnuts, but I see your point. Yep. Pecans, yeah. If you can't do walnuts, there is a reason why One Cup says Jesus Christ used nature in his metaphors and parables. He was connected. The lost books I found so enlightening. And I mean, the parable about the mustard seed. Now I gotta say though, mustard seeds will grow damn anywhere. But to the point though, they grow better when they're tilled. So yeah, he used nature everywhere about him. And the one thing that I used to tell the priests and some of the nuns back in my day is, why are we going into a church? Where did Jesus preach? Not in the synagogue. He didn't say, "Ooh, let's go down to the town hall." No, they went out in the country and he preached in the open air. But they took what Jesus, he went out in the country and they took that and brought it in and built a religion around his, quote, beliefs. But men had to do this. Jesus didn't do it. Jesus was outside. So, and he was a simple man. So there you go. Next time you cut a carrot, look at the inside. Maybe it's good for your eyesight. Gotcha with that. Cartersville and Calhoun, Adairsville. That's where we went. There was a big powwow there in Adairsville. Cave Springs. I forgot buzzards for grubbing down on Mr. Muffles, or Kitty's. He's just being a buzzard. Um, a buzzard killed your kitty? That's not. That's not. Uh, that's not common. Just Spitfire. I'm just saying. Now, an animal's got to be dead for a turkey buzzard to get it. They won't even go near it unless it's been dead a certain amount of time. No, he was eating him after he was dead. Something else killed it though, right? That's what I was after. Because buzzards don't kill. The kitty might have been killed and then the buzzard eats him. I've got a group of turkey buzzards that nest right back here in the back of the house. There's a couple of big trees back here in the swamp. And there are as many as 50, I've counted, 50 buzzards will roost right back here. It's not uncommon for at least 15 or 20. But there was one night, one of the neighbors did something out back over here, and the buzzards took flight just at dusk. And I could see them back here in the pine trees and the oak trees and all. And I was like, and I was sort of counting, and I was like up to about 25. And all of a sudden, the noise came, the next door neighbor over here, and they took off. And oh my God, they just kept taking off and taking off and I was like, well, wait a minute, there went that whole 20 in that group. There's a whole nother tree over here. And I was like, I could see 5, 6, 8, 10. There was 15. There was another, and I was like, crap. And there's a whole bunch more I couldn't even count. So, but there's been several times that just at dusk, they'll circle in and land in the trees, sometimes in pairs. But I worked for a local nature conservancy that took care of wounded animals, and one of them was a turkey buzzard. And of all the strange, weird things, his nickname was Gus. He had a broken wing and couldn't fly, but he hopped around everywhere. Now, he stayed inside an enclosure most of the time. But if we were out on the farm on a Saturday, Sunday kind of thing working, they'd let Gus out and hop around outside. And they'd always, there was always a lot of dead stuff on the side of the road out here. So we got used to just, taking a plastic bag and a little shovel and, well, there's a dead something, and scoop it up and take it home for Gus. Well, one of the strangest things about vultures, there's all different kinds of animals. We had hawks and owls and different types of birds that we took care of, had cages for and everything. It was wild. It was a little Clockney Periso. And, we had different animals. Anyway, so here's Gus. And on almost a daily basis, a vulture from somewhere would come in and sit on top of this old barn. And there was chicken wire over Gus's cage so that an owl or a hawk couldn't come in and attack him, with only one wing, and he couldn't get away. So anyway, this part of where he was kept had just a chicken wire roof on it. But one or two vultures would come and visit with Gus almost every single day. Now, there were times when there'd be two vultures and you could hear them kind of, this little gluttural kind of thing chatting back and forth. But they never let that vulture alone. They never abandoned that vulture. And we'd sit outside and they would just fly in and come and visit, Gus. And there got to be a couple you could tell by their wing or by their head that, there's Joe, and that looks like Sally, and that one over there might be Ken, and you could tell that there were certain ones. Now, you get a bunch of turkey buzzards together. There were just sometimes you'd notice that one looks familiar more times than not. So it seemed that they were being visited by relatives or whatever, but there was always a buzzard. If 3 days went by and a vulture didn't come in, it was usually raining or it was way too hot. There were some kind of natural conditions like a storm or something that kept them from coming in. But that they never, until Gus died, which was several years later, Gus lasted a long time there on the farm. And but the idea that the other vultures would come in and visit with him is like, what? Yeah, they didn't abandon him ever. So, in the animal world, there's so much more, to animals and birds. I went back to Buzzards Lives Matter. There's a group that's been growing here for some time on a cell tower. Interesting. Buzzards don't usually like them. David, what do you think about archons, parasite, theory, story? See, okay, Sweet Pea, I'm going to bring this up because somebody was talking about archons, and their version of what an archon is not what you're using as a parasite. The answer to that is there are parasites that exist in the universe. Are they called archons? I'm going to say be very careful because it depends on where you're at, what part of the world, what your beliefs are, and what you've been taught. As an archon could be an archonic type being. In other words, not a bad spirit, but archetypal, like a king or a high spirit or something like that. So, and there are some folks who would say archon. Well, then they automatically go over here with their definition of it. My answer to that is yes. Are they called archons? I don't even want to go there. There's so many different variations. Just like type in, I use DuckDuckGo, just type in duality, meaning. That's all. And then see what the different exceptions come up. So one person talks about duality, but do they mean it black and white, or did they mean it in physics, or did they mean it in this? So I'm not trying to belabor this, but you have to understand something in this, that there are absolutely parasites in the universe. There are jinn type of, now across the board, jinn are at least mischievous, if not downright malevolent and evil SOBs, or daughters of bitches. Anyway, but are some of those archons or some of those whatevers? I try to stay away from that because that's where I'm saying people are getting hung up on. Well, but an archon is this. Can we all agree there are negative spirits out there? Yeah. Can we just not worry about what we're going to call them? Dark entities. And they could be called all kinds of stuff. But in Belgium, they might be called something else. And an archon would be like, no, that's not what an archon means to me. But it means, an archon means this to you and me. In this, see, we got to be careful. We got to be careful. But do negative energy? Oh, yeah. I've seen some shit you do not want to ever see. You just don't. And people say, oh, I'd really like to look into these other realms. No, you don't. I said that too. And now I can't take it back. Once you see what you see, you can't unsee it. It's stuck in there. Oh, man, that sucks to a Spitfire. He said that they live on a tower because 50 to 100 acres of woods just got flattened within a year. Yeah, that sucks. We've got some now down on the Ochlockonee River. I had no idea how big these power lines. They've added some over the years, but there's some power lines that the river literally winds underneath them. They've got some of the posts, and some of the things are the cable tensioners are actually cemented or screwed into the bottom of the river, into the river bottom. And there's huge towers overhead. And there's some osprey, which is kind of odd, but that have built nests up there. And there's one a half a mile down that's away from the river. But I come underneath this one and wiggled underneath the wire and watched it and went past it. And, then I noticed a mile away on the top of another one of those great big power towers is another nest. So there are a lot of critters that are nesting on these are huge towers, So one of the things that I have noticed about nature, I got a lot of birds in the area, and I'm going through the woods and stuff. And I found this quite by accident. Was cutting some tree limbs down, and there was a nest with no eggs, but an old nest. And I looked at the nest, and 70% of the nest was made out of plastic. 70% of like a robin's nest, big around, so deep, a nest. Way over 50% of it was made out of plastic. The bird had literally stripped the plastic and wove it in with other plastic, like a basket, like they would weave a nest. But on the inside, on the outside were sticks that they wove the plastic in. And then on the inside, they used like grassy grass to make it soft for the eggs. But most of the damn nest was made out of plastic. Plastic bags, plastic this. I was like, oh my God, it was a cornucopia of plastic stuff. And so I look at it and I go, even birds must know that the plastic, I don't know, it's got some tensile strength to it, and it helps hold in moisture, and they don't feed it to the birds. And I was like, and over the years, I've noticed that a lot of bird nests have plastics in them. Now, is that a good thing? Who taught the bird that the plastic was good in the nest to begin with? Was there 100 sparrows that practiced it, and then somebody said, damn, this shit makes some pretty good pretty good nest material. I don't have to go break leaves and stuff. I can just go tear up a plastic bag. I can just go in the ditch and get some plastic and and make a nest with. Oh my God. And in nature, I look around, it's like, for as much as I bitch and complain, and there are huge islands of garbage down in the swamps, these islands are packed full of bugs, germs, crap, spiders, all kinds of stuff that are floating in the trash. Now, I was going through my pictures the other day of the orbs, and I noticed that I took a picture of a bird sitting on top of a bunch of garbage. And I thought to myself, of all the places along the river for that bird to go, why did he go to the garbage? Because there's bugs. In other places along the river that was just clean and banked, there wasn't anything for the bird to eat. So in the crappiness of crap in the plastics and the bottles, it wasn't just plastic, but mostly, that here is this island of stuff. I mean, there's plants, there's little trees growing in the middle of the river on this floating island. But there's all kinds of wildlife. It's a mini habitat floating on garbage and plastic. So I gotta say, is nature reclaiming itself? Is nature relearning? Is nature taking man's crap and doing the best they can under the circumstances? But I just have to think to myself, critters ain't as stupid as we humans sometimes think, We don't give them enough credit. But when I go down in the swamps, and I, being a nature person all my life, I look at these things and I go, who taught the sparrow how to use a plastic bag from Walmart? I'm just saying, just curiosity. Like the 100th monkey, what was the 100th bird that said, hey, all sparrows now use some form of plastic in their nest? Because now, when I do find a nest, it's more common to see plastic in the nest than not. So somewhere along the line over the last 20 some odd years, at least since the late 90s, birds have used to learn how to weave plastic. Are they going to learn how to use aluminum cans next? I don't know. But, right on for them, as long as they're not eating it and getting stuck, if they can use it for their nest and the sun will do, okie dokie. But, who taught the sparrow how to use a plastic bag? Just, got to stop and think about that. I can understand why the bugs and all the garbage and things, there's this smell. I mean, some of these piles of garbage in the middle of in the swamp, oh, they stink really bad. I mean, like sewer shit bad, or worse, actually, because there's different kind of chemicals and things and rot and stuff. But anyway, But the fact that bugs like that, and guess what? The birds eat bugs. So are these islands of plastic good or bad for the environment? Who taught the birds to go float on the islands? Well, the bugs did. They were driven to the plastic islands because of the food supply. Just saying. I went up and down that river in this one section that the birds weren't anywhere else. There were lots of shallows and things, but there weren't any minnows like there used to be. So here's a bird who's, because the environment has changed, must rely on a pile of garbage in the middle of the river to get his dinner. That's some shit. All right, my friends. Let me catch up with what you're reading. Check out, one cup says, check out cordyceps parasitic. There are 400 plus different kinds. Check them out at least. The cutter, leaf cutter ants and how the fungi feed the ants. And then check out Deuteronomy, Lysa choice. Yeah, but that's just, I agree with that one cup, but that's just one possibility. We have to understand it's more than that. I don't know, but I'm sure the concrete and rock blasting and reservoirs are hurting them. Um, just Spitfire. Yeah, that's probably. Uh, Truth is in nature. You got to be one of the wisest channels I've seen yet, Dave. Keep up the good work. Thank you, One Cup. Just Spitfire. Do you remember when all those birds all flew into a parking lot, seeing a pond or something? Yeah, I feel like he's just making use of what he's dealt with. Yeah, under the circumstances, everything's going to learn from whatever they have. And, I mean, I grew up in Tampa, and when I spent time in jail down there, and one of the I spent time as a trustee out at the incinerator there in Tampa on the south. Anyway, I can't. Anyway, down there, it was on the wrong side of the bay that stinks a lot when low tide goes out. But anyway, out there, so there's tons of seagulls. Why? Because there's garbage. You know, like the kills or whatever up in New Jersey or New York. Seagulls everywhere, everywhere. Just seagulls, seagulls, seagulls. The bugs, the garbage, the trash, the shit. So it's like they don't have enough resources in their own natural environment anymore, but they're getting it through the unnatural environment. That's a weird symbiotic kind of thing. And the more I see, like who taught the sparrow how to weave with plastic, you got to think, well, is Mother Nature teaching this in a some kind of soul level to the animals? I mean, I've seen other critters adapting to man's BS. I don't know, but it makes me wonder. In a good way, animals are much more adaptive than humans are, because they're still living in a bunch of crap, and they're making the best. They're making the best of it in a bad situation. So, wow, 2 hours and 23 minutes and counting. My friends, I love you. I have a butt ache. I have to. My old man part of me is bitching at me. I got to stand up and walk around. And I lit the cigarette once, and it's gone out, which is okay. But it's my second cigarette in a week that I bought from a store. It's been a week since I bought any, but anyway, I'd really like to smoke this cigarette and have a drink and contemplate some of what you guys have been passing along. And my town's water system is coming from the natural springs. That's not good at all. No, not with what's going on in the groundwater these days. Farmers that use these big irrigation things, they're supposed to have an anti-siphon in them. So they've got barrels of fertilizer, poison, whatever is going to go out, that irrigation, the big overhead rolling irrigation systems. But what's happened with some of these things, and they don't tell folks this, but sometimes there's a diaphragm on the inside that it will literally suck poison back out of the system and send it down 300 feet down into the water table. Whoops. Oh, that was a mistake. Yeah, well, they're supposed to have, shit happens. So my water is 25 feet deep. My neighbor's is 375. His well goes dry. I still have water in mine. Now, who's better off? Well, the guy with his 375. Yeah, but his well ran dry. And when it does, he's getting water coming in from the aquifer when it does fill back up. So that's got to be runoff from somewhere. At least I know where my runoff comes from. It comes from my hill. It doesn't cut. The road cuts it off. So my neighbor's poison goes down the ditch and into the river. It doesn't come across the street into my field and onto my hill. So do I know where my water comes from? It comes from the sky, and it comes as it percolates down through the ground into my well. That's where my water comes from, through a bunch of clay to filter it. Other people, deep water, this and that. Yeah, but I've been in a cave down here where we had to crawl down. It was raining and there was so much water. It was a waterfall. I'm talking about a torrent of water, and we literally slid down the rope through the waterfall to get in the cave. Now, all that water and all that runoff went straight down into the aquifer through these cave systems around here. So if there's a bunch of poison or whatever, so if the aquifer goes, low, as soon as it fills up, is that old water or is that new runoff in the aquifers? So people who are thinking but my well's deep. Yeah. Where is that water coming from? It's coming from an aquifer. That aquifer is being fed from where? The farm fields around here. That too much chicken poop, too much poison, too much, the cotton, everything's, they use defoliants, all of this is going where? Into the aquifer. It doesn't go into my well because my water is contained in my watershed here. People that got a deep well, they could be getting poison from Albany. They could be getting poison from 50 miles north of here that goes into the aquifer. But their water's clean. Are you sure? Is your water pure? Are you sure? People over the years are like, well, you should get a deep well, Dave. Yeah, that's $5,000, and I don't have that kind of money, and my well has done me okay. Yeah, it's gone really close to being dry, but everybody else's in the neighborhoods was dry too at 300 and 400 feet. So if I'd have had a deep well, I'd have been out of water just like them. My shallow well gave me better conditions than all the deep well. And now that with all these other pollutants being found in the aquifers, and everybody and his mother's buying clay to eat to get rid of toxic metals in their bodies, I got natural clay comes out of my tap. But I'm worse off than they are. They thought I'd be dead by now. Oh, but you're going to get all these diseases from the clay in your water. And now they're the ones that want to buy clay from me. Just saying. How the tables have turned, But anyway. One Cup says, what I learned from the ants is however you look at it, you're working for the fungus. The choice is slavery or service. Much love, Dave and family. Thank you, One Cup. We're all serving something. I mean, when I get hungry, I'm going to go find something to eat. I'm going to go out and check the chicken pen. I'm going to go out and forage through the garden. I'm going to go out walking in the woods. But yeah, you're going to go for a beer yourself. Yep, do that. We're blasting rocks on one side and two springs on the other, and they wonder why our biggest earthquakes this year. Yeah, they stopped up all our caves. Oh, yeah, that too. And what folks don't understand is that in some of the caves around here, when the runoff is so severe, a half a mile back in a cave, they're plastic bottles. a half a mile back in the cave. And it ain't that somebody took them there. You can see because the 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 sand has washed into the cave. There are no footprints, and the bottle is like brand new and sitting on top of the sand. So it came in with the water and the sand into the cave. And I've been in these caves too many times around here, and people just don't get it. There's when they throw something out on the side of the road. Oh well, it goes yeah, it goes into the caves, and there's down in the caves there are holes and things being stopped up, which should be natural crevices for the water to drip through the limestone and to get and take out the impurities. Some of these holes and cracks and crevices are being stopped up literally by plastic and garbage. So it's not even making it to the rocks and going through its own natural filtering system that's been going on for centuries, thousands of years at least. When you look inside and you can tell how the waters flowed around the limestone. It just, wow. So anyway, the last tornado touched down between the two reservoirs. It blew the top of one of them, and that was before the buzzards came. Buzzards, there's a lot of, do a little checking on buzzards because buzzards may be sitting on top of a power line because they don't have trees, but buzzards don't hang around unless there's a food source. I would ask the question, not why are they roosting on the towers, but why are there so many of them in an area that's being blasted? What's dead in the area that's feeding the turkey buzzards? I mean, they'll fly 20 miles looking for carrion and come back to the same roost. But that's not my point. My point is, if you know this blasting and stuff's going on, what in the surrounding natural things are feeding those buzzards? They got to be eating something dead. And if they're coming back and regrouping in an area, then they're regrouping because their food source is nearby. Think about it. Just want to toss that out there as a naturalist, because if you look at one thing, why are they there? Well, why are the osprey building nests in the towers along the Ochlockonee River? Because of the Ochlockonee River. There's a lot of stuff along there, and along in this particular area, there's a couple of miles to where the river's a lot in the open. It sneaks into the woods and then comes back out in the open again and sneaks into the woods. And there's a lot of different kinds of terrain, but it's easy for a large bird to swoop down and get something out of the river. And in some of those places, the river's wide. So why is there an osprey or a large animal there? Because there's a nearby way for them to feed. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there in the first place. If there's no food, they ain't building a nest. They'll give that up. So just saying. So if you see one behavior, I wonder about a town-wide sinkhole since it's dry on caves. And I think they are because their homes have been bulldozed. I agree with you there, Spitfire, but I'm saying for yourself, check around your area what is feeding those. Not why are they roosting on, the trees are gone, but there's another reason why they're there. Buzzards will tell that story. Just saying, from a Native American point of view and from my 50 plus years of observation, there's another reason why them buzzards are in the area. Check it out. Don't know what it is, but just check it out. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. There's something else. Not that they're there, but there's buzzards tell you other things too. But anyway, my friends, my lovelies, my family, my fellow members of the League of Like-Minded Beings, I am your humble host and I hope your friend. Thank you. Continued blessings to all of you. Keep up the good work. Thank you for everybody that still may be on. It's been great hanging out with you. I've been wanting to do this. I hope I've answered some questions. I know we've been through some stuff. I love this being able to go back and forth with you guys and gals. So keep up the good work on your end. Let's meet again and have some more conversation. I got several other topics I'd like to discuss and a few old stories that I would like to tell you, old legends, if you will. So let's close with with the prayer. I continue to pray that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, and all of your relations will continue to accept and receive the blessings from the universe. I continue to pray that each and every one of you will continue to accept and receive these blessings, the wisdom and the healing from the universe, and that you will continue to spread it in your own way. I continue to pray that each and every day that peace will come upon the earth. Remember that water is sacred. Remember that water has energy. And anytime that you have the opportunity to go stand in some water and give a prayer for peace, the end of all slavery on this planet, especially child, any kind of sacrificing, we need to continue our prayers for that. When we let up our prayers and when we stop thinking about it, it's not that we should obsess about it, but we should keep our prayers going. Let's stop any kind of human slavery, any kind of human trafficking in any way, shape, or form, and any type of abuse that goes on, especially with children. My friends, my lovelies, have a great morning. Have a great evening. Have a better tomorrow. Ian, Just Spitfire, and all of the rest of you folks, blessings, blessings, blessings. Thank you, Breaking Dawn, if you're still out there, for hanging on to that wrench for me. Um, Thumbs up, everybody. And to the other 72ers, we do have a purpose, and that's to keep things up. Um, Gift your waters with Organite. Yeah, that too. Thank you so much for talking about human slavery. Absolutely, Breaking Dawn. You know that's me, and we're going to keep it up too. Just made some yesterday. Yeah, or Breaking Dawn makes Organite, Aurora, if you didn't know. But yes, and other things too. Just take a crystal with you, you know. Just take yourself and say a prayer and put your feet in the water. Spirit will hear it. But the water will help to spread it around the universe, around the whole planet. So, you know, it's just special. So blessings, my friends. And until next time, I am your humble host. And I hope your friend. And until next time, TTFN from South Georgia. Till next time, hey, and Just Spitfire, you know, if you're in Georgia, we should get together someplace. I got canoes and kayaks. Let's go boating. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.